Hello, everybody, and welcome back to It All Counts podcast. I have a very special guest today, one I'm excited about, one I've known for a long time, one I've learned some valuable lessons from as a student athlete as well as a coach. Matt Painter. Payne, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
And also, happy anniversary.
Oh, man, you did your homework. I like that.
To our audience, I hope you got your coffee ready. It's going to be a good one. A lot of lessons learned from one of the best college coaches in the country and in a future Hall of Fame. I'm saying that now because I can see it. But Matt Painter was a teammate of mine, played at Delta High School, Muncie, Indiana. Great track record, phenomenal man, leader, father. I want to reel off a couple things. About Matt Painter. 4-time Big Ten Coach of the Year. Missouri Valley Coach of the Year, 4-time Big Ten champs, 2-time conference champs, has coached a lot of guys from a professional standpoint, NBA guys, that whether they were guards or big guys. He's done a great job as an assistant coach, as a head coach. Payne, I'm really happy you're here, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on and looking forward to it.
Payne, one question I have for you. In climbing that coaching ladder, can you give our audience your start and how you got started?
Yeah. You know, for me, I probably wanted to coach more than I wanted to play it sometimes. Like I always wanted to talk about it. I always wanted to think about it. I was probably a little pessimistic at times when I was younger, just because I thought I knew more than I actually did. Then you get into coaching and you realize you didn't know as much, and it really humbles you. And but my dad was a basketball guy. He enjoyed basketball. So that was probably what kind of got my passion there. So he coached me in probably little league from kindergarten to about 4th grade. Then in basketball, probably kindergarten to about 6th grade. So the milkman, which makes me feel old, right? We had a milkman who'd drop off milk in the morning. He ran into my basketball goal when I was in 4th grade, 3rd grade, something like that. And so it tilted my goal. And then my dad poured a 50-foot concrete slab in the backyard, and then got floodlights and just made kind of like a field of dreams in my backyard. And so like that to me is kind of what started my basketball and playing, and just having a place to go every day after school and just shoot and play and have everybody in my neighborhood come through there. So obviously playing and going to college and playing at Purdue, and just wanted to get into it. Probably the best thing for me was going Division III, going Division II, low major for 3 years, mid major for 6 years, then obviously back to Purdue. But you learn a lot. You learn a lot through the competition in those conferences, and a lot of good coaches at the Division III, Division II level, low major. They were Rick Samuels at Eastern Illinois. When I was there, I got the job a couple days before my 25th birthday, so I was very fortunate to get a job, and they had cut the salaries of the assistants. And so his pool was thin because a lot of people that were out there that have been assistants, they weren't going to go after that job because it was paying. I think I made around $23,000 as a full-time assistant. But to me, it was beautiful. It was heaven. It was a great opportunity, and I learned from a great man, and he was different than Coach Katie. Coach Katie was, he was fair, but he was on you, and he was really fair, but he was more laid back. He wasn't a screamer. He wasn't a yeller, and it kind of showed me there's a different way to do it. But more than anything, after I went through it a while, I realized just be yourself. It's okay to steal plays and steal ways from other people, but don't try to be like somebody else. Just it's okay being you. And I think when you're authentic that way, the players can see that. I know the players can see that because when we were players, we saw it. And just so important that I had some of those experiences. Then I was able to go with Bruce Weber to Southern Illinois. And it was a big deal for me because here he'd been an assistant forever. So trying to make it work for him. He'd been assistant for 18 years at Purdue. So that was big for me. Just to, I wanted to see him have success and get the thing going. And it was a great time. It was an unbelievable time being at Southern Illinois and getting it going, and then seeing him get a dream job like Illinois, and getting to the final game at Illinois with that great crew. Then I was fortunate to get the head coaching job there, which never bought a house, never, like, I was just living week to week, month to month, and happy about it. Really happy, actually. And just the fact that I got that job, bought a house, we lost some players. We got picked fifth in our league. And then we ended up winning our league by 5 games. And 9 months later, I came back to Purdue to be an assistant. So it was kind of a whirlwind for me. Like, those 2 years were tough, as we were at Purdue together, as the year I was an assistant, and the year as a head coach. It was the worst 2-year period in the history of Purdue basketball. And the last 2 years that we've just had is the most successful 2 years in the history of Purdue basketball. We won 29 games back-to-back years. So it kind of shows you, like, when you go through something like that, even though it's tough, it's good for you. And if you can get yourself through adversity and keep learning, and that's what I've really tried to do. Like, they didn't hire me at Purdue because I knew more than the next guy. Purdue's just a loyal place. And I was just fortunate to be in the right place at the right time twice in my life. But we've gotten a lot of really good people here, and we got a great staff. We got great people around us, and our staff has just done a great job here the last 7-8 years, just kind of doing a better job of vetting, who we're bringing and who's around those people we're bringing. I think that might be even more important. So, like, we got some really good families and some really good, student athletes that have come through here, and we just got to keep it going, because I think our program's in a really good spot.
Yes, as one of the best in the game. But go back to when you were an assistant coach, going back to either Washington and Jefferson. Did you ever think, man, at some point, man, I don't want to do this anymore? Coming from Indiana and all the way out there, did you ever think, like, man, is it worth it?
Yeah, you think about that all the time. You think about the one thing that people don't understand. Like, I have an unbelievable love and passion for basketball, but what they don't get is the burden you carry.
Yes.
They don't understand that. Like, I want to do so well for Purdue fans. Like, man, it eats at me. So to have, like, a couple of the losses that we've had there, like, you don't want to let people down, period. That's just you as a person. Like, that's how I'm wired. I don't like letting people down, even if I don't know you. Like, man, it's like, but we put a lot of time into it. We work and you grind, and, like, you're at Washington and Jefferson, and we almost go to a Final Four, and, like, you're in the middle of that season. You're like, man, what am I doing? Like, this is what I'm going to do? Like, because you always reflect. At some point during the season, every coach always goes, man, what in the world am I doing? And then, like, you kind of regroup, and you're like, I'm doing this because I love the game. I love people. But most people that are in it for the right reasons, come from a place of help. I was talking to 2 young people the other night on the phone, part of the NCAA, and I just told them, I said, like, you guys don't understand where we come from and how we look at things. I respect how you look at things, because I would be with you saying the same things. Yes. But, like, you're not in the business of doing what young people want you to do. You're in the business of doing what's best for them. Yes. And I think that is something I've learned through the years, like, at those different places, when you reflect and you're like, man, like, is this really what, I want to do? And then you get back to it, you're like, yeah, because you're making a difference. Like, at the end of the day, they lay you down and they lay me down, and we're done. Winning basketball games does not matter.
That's true.
It does not matter. They will look back and say, did Cuonzo Martin treat people well?
That's
Is
true.
Cuonzo Martin a good dude? Like, that's all they will say. If you can keep that in perspective, especially when they're kicking dirt on you, like, it'll keep you rolling. Because it's hard for coaches to keep rolling sometimes, because just the noise and everything that goes on. But you have to. You're a leader. You have to.
So with all your success, of course, that was a tough game in March that knocked you guys out. So how do you deal with that? How do you transfer that to your players at the end of the season up until now? And then how do you take all that into your home?
Right. Well, Well, when we took the bus back after the game, I just made sure we got in the locker room and just told them like what they've done for our program, like the success that they've had. I told them about having success is one thing, but doing it the right way. Mm. And I'm not a big proponent of that because you shouldn't get rewarded for doing what you're supposed to do.
I agree.
Like there should be some reward. Like, hey man, they don't cut corners. They're straight up. Like, well, yeah, well, who cares? It's what you're supposed to do. Now, the other people that don't, they should be held accountable. And a lot of times in our business, they're not. And so I just made sure that they knew that we appreciated what they have done for our program and the way they've done it. Now, it was a heartbreaking loss, and, we got to use that as motivation. Hopefully it's one of those things that was meant to be to get us on edge so we can be better next year when we get in that same position. But we got to, you start all over in this business. You just don't plop back right in that position again. You got to go earn it. And so now that's where we're at now, trying to piece everything together without missing any steps and being fundamentally sound and, everybody being on the same page. But we're also on earning ground again. Like you got to earn, you got to play that game. And I think the one thing that I look at from my standpoint of having, such a tough loss for us is I don't know if I've done a great job of our guys having that competitive fear against people that I respect. And I know they deep down respect, but they might not have the same name on their jersey. Mm. Texas rolls in there, which we beat in the NCAA tournament 2 years ago. Like, there's not a person in the world that's not going to get up for Texas. But now you play North Texas. Well, North Texas is damn good, man. They beat us. They beat us in overtime, but all of our guys respected them. And that's the one thing, like all of our guys respected Farley Dickinson. It wasn't a lack of respect for us. We just got beat straight up. We turned the basketball over too much, 4 for 23 from 3, something of that nature. And you combine that kind of shooting with not taking care of the basketball. But when you go back and look at the quality of shots we were getting, they were good shots. You got to be able to, step up and knock some of those down. But the games that we shoot poorly and we don't turn it over, we still find our way because we're the third best, offensive rebounding team in the country. And so, but when you have 16 turnovers in a low possession game, I don't care where you play it or when you play it, you're going to have a tough time winning those games. You just are. So we got to do a better job, but also keep working, stay on edge. Like, hey man, champions get off the canvas. Last time I checked, get off the canvas and start fighting again.
I agree with that. The one thing about you as a teammate, when I was a freshman, you were a junior, I thought you did a great job of helping me, educate me on what to understand, what coach expects from me, what the assistant coaches were looking for. And the thing about it, you were always that guy, and I laugh and joke about it. You had the Street Smith magazine. You had all these magazines all the time. You were a student of it. So if somebody would have asked me, 30 years ago, what would Payne be, I'd say he'd be a coach at some level because I knew that the type of guy you were. But even that, you had an offensive mind. We had a defensive DNA as a team and a program. But I think in the last, and maybe I could be off a little bit, the last 10 or so plus years, you guys have been elite on both sides of the ball. How did you do that, and was the transition tough?
Yeah, it is tough because you're trying to find your niche, and probably the most change that we had and the best job I think our staff did was when we struggled. We've been to 14 out of 16 NCAA tournaments.
Wow.
So we went to 6 straight, then we didn't go to 2, and then we went to 8 straight. But when we didn't go to those 2, it really made me soul search and be like, man, we got to be different. We got to start doing a better job of putting our offensive schemes together and running plays. But I got to recruit a more skilled guy. Okay. I got to recruit a tough guy, but I also got to have a skilled guy. And with that, sometimes you're going to find a couple cats in there with heavy feet. And so how can we still defend? And you got a couple guys out there with some heavy feet, and maybe they can't contain the dribble as well. But then offensively, it's great because they know how to play, they can shoot. And so I really kind of went after that. And we've always been able to get quality big dudes. So if we can get quality big dudes and we can get a lot of skill, and then we can have that one guard that's dynamic like J.I. or Carson. Now Braden Smith for us as a point guard really sets the table because he can pass the ball so well. And that really helps us. So that's where I really, from an offensive standpoint, and then I tried to I tried to simplify it. We run a lot of stuff, but from a vernacular standpoint, I gave everything a definition, and we call our plays in sequence. And it kind of gives off the illusion of complexity, but it's not that hard. As long as you got to know your vocab words. Be like in third grade, you get your 10 vocab words on Monday, quizzes on Friday. The next Monday, 10 vocab words. And as time goes on and the season's about done, or the school year's about done, you got a lot of vocab words. And so and you slowly but surely just learn all those. Well, with our guys, we just learn those and now we can run a lot of different stuff. So when I steal action or see different things that I like in an NBA game or another college coach, I add it to the framework of our families, and then they just put it in there. And then I'll see somebody on the street 2 years later, and they'll be like, man, I really love your stuff. I'll be like, well, cool, I stole it all. You can call it my stuff if you want. That's nice to hear, but it's not mine. I stole it, but I just put it within the framework of what we do and with the personnel that we have. And I like having a lot of things that you can go to. Yeah. And then defensively, really our blueprint is, Gene Cady, Bruce Weber, just, Purdue. And like the toughness, Garden. It's a little different now. Yeah. They don't allow you to do, be as physical, but our league gets pretty physical at times. You got to learn to kind of be smart about it and have high hands and be physical with your chest. But we were number one last year in offensive efficiency versus the top 100 teams in the country. And we were number 14 in the country in offensive efficiency in the top 100. But we're looking to make strides, and we're looking to make improvements. And I think that's what, as a coach, also the basketball piece of it, like if you're better offensively, like you have just strengthened your defense. Yes. And if you're better defensively, which you hear a lot growing up, like let your best offense be your defense. Like if you can dominate the glass, or you can get a lot of deflections, or you can turn somebody over. See, we haven't been a team lately that's turned a lot of people over. And then when we look back, that's kind of that flag, but also our personnel, we haven't been overly athletic. So we've added some athleticism and quickness. So we're hoping that we can kind of get that final piece, because Zach has really improved his defense and really improved his ball screen defense. Man. And then we have a very good front line. We got some experienced guards, but we got some athletes coming in: Miles Colvin, Cam Heide, Lance Jones. So I think that's really going to help us in our backcourt, to give us some quickness, to give us some athleticism, to go along with our experience and our size. So, we're looking forward to making strides on offense and defense, and to just kind of keep helping each other.
That's good. Coach, since 2015 and 16, you've had the most all Big Ten selections. But on top of that, you guys have had phenomenal big guys as well as great guards. I think people lose sight of the fact that you have so many great guards as well, like Jaden Ivey's number 5 pick 2 years ago. So how do you get those guys to be on the same page, to score at a high level and share the ball?
Right. Really just talk about it. I start with a seminar every year to start the season here the past 7-8 years, just on shot selection. And any coach right now that's listening at any level, the light bulb just went on. The flashlight, the fireworks, whatever. Like, who doesn't have a problem with their team in shot selection? Like, who? I don't care if you're the best team or the worst team. Everybody has issues there. So I like to start my fight early. Like, before we get to a game, before we get somewhere, let's just get down to some basic principles of what works, what doesn't work, without taking that opportunity and freedom away from someone to compete and to show that they might have improved in some areas over the summer, because that can happen. Yes. So I step back and I watch a lot, but then I go through the last 4 or 5 seasons and I show them the execution, I show them the efficiency, I show them the do's and the don'ts, and I break it down. And I start talking about all those teams and all the particulars, and why I use J.I. the way I use J.I., why I use Carson Edwards the way I use Carson Edwards. I talk about E'Twaun Moore, and I talk about like different guys and how they were. E'Twaun Moore was such a great player. He had such a mature pulse. He could play off the dribble, good in between game. But if a track meet broke out, he'd have to run the concession stand. Like, he ain't got anything to run. But last time I checked, it's not track, it's basketball, and he's a great basketball player. And so we just utilized him to his strengths. Like, he was great in wing ball screens, and we just wore it out. J.I. and Carson are both great in the open court. When it opens up and they have the ball, they're great. I'm talking college. Maybe they've improved in other areas since then. But in the half court, we ran a lot of stuff for them where they were off the ball. Didn't mean we didn't put it in their hands some, but we really tried to open some things up because of their athleticism, their quickness. Carson has such a quick trigger, and he was such a bulldog that you had to live with some of his stuff. Like you had to live with a couple tough shots. You had to live with him maybe being a little overzealous because the return was once he got hot, he could carry your club. Yes. And that's what you have to have. J.I. was just so fast, and he could just break you down. And, he just get there. He's just going to cause people to foul. He's going to get to the rim a lot. And you just had to utilize that talent. You just had to let him go. But he was still developing too. He's still developing, even though he's been in the NBA a year. But we just try to play to their strengths. And that's what, Zoe, I've really got to in recruiting, because so many people just say what they have to say to get somebody. Yeah. And I just tell those guys, here's how we're going to use you if you become one of our top 2 or 3 scorers. Okay, here's how we'll use you. But if you don't, then you're going to have to blend in with our top 2 or 3 scorers. Yes. So, and then sometimes they'll look at you funky, right? And then that's when you just got to say hey man, what's the name of the guy on your team? It's the 7th man. And they'll say his name and I'll be like, all right, what do you guys run for him? You'd be like, we don't run anything for him. Well, you're our 7th man. So that's just the way it is. But I think that honesty, even though it might upset them, if you get them, you don't get them on false pretenses. You told them the truth.
Yes.
And so many people, they get them and then they're like, hey man, this guy just lied to me. I don't need to lie to somebody to get you to come on our team. We can tell you the truth and get you. And that's what we want to do. And if we don't get you, then you gave us a chance. You gave us that opportunity. It's your choice where you want to go. But don't pick the school because the last liar told you what you wanted to hear.
I like that. Now, you guys have done a great job in recruiting. I've had several people over the years ask me, what's your guy recruiting philosophy? Because you've had a mixture of guys that gel well together and have phenomenal success together. What's the blueprint behind that?
Yeah. Well, I think size is different, first of all. So we like those big old 7'4", 300, 7'2", 300, 7'3", 250. So we've had a lot of different ones, but we've also had the true power forward, Carl Landry, Caleb Swanigan. We've also had the skinny guys, Matt Harms, Juwan Johnson, MVP of the league. So we've had a lot of different, types of bigs, AJ Hammonds, Isaac Haas, Zach Edey, they're big traditional centers. And for us, if you want those guys, man, you got to comb the earth for them though. Yes. You got to go different places to be able to find them. They're not just going to be in the same area because there's very few of them. But after that, really just trying to find skill. I think the one thing, Zoe, I don't know if you've thought of this, but anytime you're dealing with people that are really skilled, they've put in more time than other people from the fact that ball doesn't go in by magic.
Yes.
They've put in a lot of time. Now they're invested a little bit more. And so when you go to when it gets tough and adversity sets in, it's got to be your passion. If it's not your passion, you're going to wilt because it gets hard. It's not easy. People sometimes think what do you guys do when you don't have games? Like we're just sitting around flipping quarters, It's well, what do you mean? We're preparing, we're practicing. This is the routine, man. You wake up thinking about it and you go to bed thinking about it every day. That's just the way it is. And sometimes that'll wear you out now. But for them, I always look at it if you're good enough to play in the Big Ten, and then you're good enough to start and play major minutes, and you're good enough to be all conference, and you're good enough to be a pro, well, we can't wait to be in that position to start acting like one. Yes. Let's start being a pro. And then they got sometimes a false reality what a pro is. A pro is someone that shows up early and stays late. A pro is someone who treats somebody with respect. Mm. A pro is someone who has a passion for it and is going to do everything. Lift, condition, shoot, do everything. And you're in college, and it's about you getting your education. So being a pro, especially if you don't like class, you got to learn to do things that you don't like to so you can do the things you want to. Like if you just go through life and you don't do anything that you don't like or want to do, like you're probably going to have a tough life. That's just not the way it rolls. And so like if they can learn that through basketball, it really helps them down the road. I mean, it really helps them down the road. So we vet a lot of things. We've spent more time in digging. So like I know you've done the personality test and doing stuff, and it's really not, even though I like the content of it, what it does is that it pushes you in an area to ask more questions. Yeah. So it's not really giving you the answers. It's giving you more questions to kind of say, okay, Zoe had this on his thing. So Zoe had wisdom on his thing. Like, what's that mean? Well, he wants to be coached. He can't get enough. He loves basketball. Like, you're like, whoa, okay, that jumps out. Now he's got competitiveness on there. Okay, we're dealing with a competitive guy. You know, now you look on there and you see friendship. Then you see a lot of different things, but it all doesn't mean the same thing for the same person. Like you could have family happiness on there, and that means he has a big family. They have family reunions every 6 months. They love each other and everything's great. Then you could have family happiness where somebody like comes from a single parent home, never met their dad, and now all of a sudden they want their own family. And so like two total different things, but it says family happiness on it. So like you can get like, you got to be able to dig. You got to know their background. You got to know their expectations. Like you because you're fielding a team. And so I always talk about this with our guys. I say, why is the guys that are on this team and the guys that came before you that had no high major offers that Purdue offered them and they had success at our place? Like, why do you think those guys just keep having success? Well, I think our staff's done a good job evaluating, but I also think those guys are hungry. I also think they appreciate it. I know they appreciate it. They appreciate it just a little bit different than someone who has the whole Big Ten sitting in their living room. Doesn't mean that guy isn't a good guy. I'm not saying that. But that's just human nature. You're like, hey, man, because I'll say it every blue moon, like, there's one Big Ten coach that thinks you belong in this league, and there's 13 of them that don't. You want to who we want to prove right and wrong here. Let's understand that. But I know from digging on them that a lot of those guys were skilled, a lot of those guys were competitive, a lot of those guys were hungry, and man, when it comes to role definition, man, you got to be able to have role definition. You just do. But sometimes it's hard to know who your studs are going to be. Like, Caleb Swanigan's going to come in and he's going to be a guy. He's the only McDonald's All-American we've signed, even though each one more should have been a McDonald's All-American.
Yes.
But I always tell those guys in that meeting, so like, you guys are our McDonald's All-Americans. I don't care how the hell they vote.
Yes.
So we looked it up other day. We've been 14 out of 16 tournaments, and there was a team that's been 15. And they've had more success than us in the NCAA tournament. We have one McDonald's All-Americans in 16 years. They have 46. And so I showed our team that. And I just said, like, well, good for them. Like, you know what I mean? Because they can do that, and that's the level they are. And they have earned that. Like, I'm not, like, sometimes you look at it and people will be like, oh, they get this, they get that. No. That school earned that. And so they get to do that. They get to walk with the Kings. But it doesn't mean we can't beat them on a given night. It doesn't mean just because they kind of recruiting but they're the top of the hill. Yeah. And that's where you're trying to get. But we're never going to be them. Like, that's okay in a recruiting battle. But it doesn't mean we can't win. That's what, like, when we were at Southern Illinois, we used to get beat by Bradley and Illinois State a lot in recruiting. A lot. But we could win the games.
Yes.
So that's what's a cool thing about putting a team together. Like, that's what we've spent a lot of time doing. And we're not perfect. We are not perfect, man. I make mistakes. Our staff makes mistakes. You do that. But you're also trying and have a system and a process that kind of is more a checks and balances than anything, that allows you to vet to see if I'm getting the right person from Purdue. And it helps that you can be somewhere for 20 years. Because now, like, you can grow through things. Because starting over is very difficult.
Oh, tell me about it. I know those so well. And Paint, the one thing you have a great coaching tree. Guys have got success from your staff, and you have guys that are currently in your staff that get head coaching opportunities. what do you look for? What do you think the blueprint in them guys getting opportunities, but also what do you look for in an assistant coach?
Yeah. I think the first thing for us is just having a good brand. I think when athletic directors and headhunters are looking, like when you look at Purdue, like education's important.
Yes.
Taking care of your business, being responsible, like that assistant, should be like almost like a byproduct of that brand and that school.
Yes.
Because now that's really what they want. They want a smaller version of that, coming to their school. So their guys are graduating, they're doing things the right way. And then obviously, you got to win, and so kind of setting the table, for your assistants and trying to help them, get where they want. And each guy's a little bit different, but like timing is everything with jobs. That's what's kind of hard. Like sometimes you get guys that are ready, but then like the jobs that are popping up, like don't fit where they want to go or what they want to do. And that's hard because you got to strike when the iron's hot. So if you're having success, the game gets cyclical sometimes where you can be on top. I mean, you can have a couple bad things happen, bad luck, transfer, injury, and all of a sudden boop, you were on top, now you're not. Now you got to fight to get back there. Well, for that assistant, now it doesn't look the same. And, for us, we've always tried to get assistants here, guys that want to be here, guys that, are good guys more than anything. When you look at players and helping players and develop, guys are going to have issues. And if you can't troubleshoot and help them, that's your job. Yes. That's your job as an assistant, man. The players, more than anything. You got to know the game and you got to be able to recruit. But, that's your responsibility as a coach, not just an assistant coach, but as a head coach. But just looking for honest, hardworking guys. I know that kind of comes off hokey, but I got to be able to trust the person underneath me.
That's real. That's real.
Yeah, and I don't know if, and at times I hired a guy one time and he was really a basketball guy, but we didn't have support staff. It was a while ago, 10, 12 years ago. And he helped out in the weight room, but he was so good with our players. But I used to joke that he didn't know a sit up from a push up, but he was just a good dude and he was good basketball, was a good basketball mind and he was going to be a good coach. And he's coaching now. He's been coaching in college for 10 years and it was great, but we needed we needed more people around our players that had played, that had good personalities, good rapport. Because what people don't understand is players will keep things inside, but at times they don't feel comfortable talking to anybody. Yeah. They don't want to show weakness. They don't want to show, and part of, having that strength is being able to say it, but also as a head coach to put people in your program where they're going to feel comfortable talking about them. You get someone who's been raised by his mom and you come into men's basketball and the only person he's ever talked to is a female. When something's went wrong in his life, he ain't going to talk to you about that. Yeah. So getting a sports psychologist that is a female was big for us 4 or 5 years ago. And so now they have somebody to go to that they feel more comfortable and it's authentic and that person's not going to walk away and talk to anybody about it. So it's on a professional level. But then having those assistants, if you have assistants that good coach, good player, good coach and good recruiter, but then players don't trust them and they can't go and talk to them, and you're going to have problems. Yes. You got to start with the person. You got to have a good person that's going to, really help your program and help those players. Then, you got to be able to know the game. You got to have a specialty somewhere to where the game through your experiences, the game, you can recruit. A lot of times people look the part in recruiting, just do your job, just evaluate, do your job. But also for us, we don't cheat. So about 10 years ago, I'm why do I keep recruiting against people that cheat? And so I'm an idiot. I'm an absolute fool here. So I was just guys, quit recruiting people that have 2 or 3 people on their list that have offered them, that want them, that cheat. That's simple. But I kept doing it. And then everybody out there would say, man, your recruiting's a lot better or your teams are a lot better. And that was one of the main reasons, because now we went down a little bit. So guys ranked lower ended up being better players for us.
Yes.
We got teams in our league that we've, averaged 4 more wins a year against last 12 years, 10 years.
Wow.
And they've beat us in recruiting every year, but yet we're winning more games. They can have that. And the people that rank them, keep ranking them high. Like, come on, man. Like, someone's wrong here. Like something's wrong. But what people don't get, like our grandmas can get together and pick the top 25 players in the country, right? Like, they just it's not that hard. But then when you go from there after that, that's where you got to get it figured out. Where those national guys, it's hard for them because they can't see everybody. And they rank people on talent. They rank people on athleticism. And I understand you need talent and athleticism. I'm not a fool. But last time I checked, it's a production game. Like, what are you getting done? You can jump over the moon. You can't get me an offensive board. Like, if you can jump over the moon, you got to get 15 boards. Like, if you're fast, you should be getting runouts for layups. You should sprint back in defense and set up a wall. You're not using your quickness. You're not using your athleticism. So looking at guys that are productive versus like just an overall talent, but understanding that, if you can have both, that's the key. If you get a talented guy that works hard, that's productive, and he's a good dude, like that's the recipe. Those are the guys.
Carson Barrett, Brian Waddell, Chase Martin, these are guys you play with their dads. How is that experience?
Oh, it's cool. It's cool because, obviously, I knew you. I knew Dave Barrett, Matt Waddell I lived with. So, seeing those guys and they don't know, right? They don't know. They go out there and they play. They get better. They work. They're there every single day. They're just having fun. You know what I mean? They're just having fun. But for me, I actually was on a podcast earlier. Somebody asked me that question. And they said that. I said, well, the one thing that you know is, if they don't trust me or they trust the program, they wouldn't be here. They might be in school, but they wouldn't be with us. And so, you guys giving us that and then wanting that experience like you guys had, that's pretty cool. It's, and that's what we try to do. I recruit our walk-ons. People are well, what do you mean you recruit our walk-ons? I said, last time I checked, it's pretty important.
Yes, it is.
Chase knows everything, literally. He knows everything in our program. If you said something or whatever, he'd sit out there and he's sitting there, talk to those guys, whatever. He gets in there and competes, knows what's going on, gets after people. But when he's not, he's helping Miles Colvin. He's talking to Cam Heide and he's telling them. And some guy's getting frustrated. He's walking over there talking to him. Carson Barrett, same way. They could tell you anything. Those guys there. Carson's going to go into coaching. Obviously, Chase isn't. I don't know. Maybe he's going to, but I don't think the engineering degree, then becoming a doctor, I think he should stay right there.
Yeah, he's taking out his mom.
Brian's been through something tough with the ACL, MCL, and last year came back and just wasn't there. Now he's looking good. He's strong. He stayed here in May. He's put a lot of time in. Good defensive player, make an open shot, very sneaky athletically. So it's been a really good experience for us.
I had a couple fun questions. What advice would you give a young Matt Painter?
You don't know as much as you think you do. I was one of those guys that loved basketball or whatever, but I was just dying to tell the world how much I knew. Just dying. Anybody who listened. Street signs, anybody. I just relax. And you simply don't know as much as you think you do. My mom used to have a comment that there's no such thing as an intelligent 20-year-old. You just haven't lived long enough. You don't have those experiences.
She was a great
lady.
lady.
And the experiences that you have later in life and that was it. So I was social in college, as you know. And so when someone is teetering that line or they're doing whatever, I always talk to them. I just say, hey, the guys that aren't social on this team, man, I really respect them.
Yeah.
I just said, but the people that are like you, man, I really understand you. But if I had to do it over again, here's some things that I think I would do differently. And so I really talk to them, but I don't come from a place, I just come from a place of help.
Yeah.
but I also share my experiences and say some of the things that like you got in your life, I got you. I go, but you can do that whenever you want the rest of your life. I go, but you can't play college basketball forever. So like try to make the most of it. And I wish I just would have been a little bit more along those lines because I was limited and I wasn't as athletic. But I knew and I listened and I knew what was going on, but I still was limited. But then like, just giving more and just being a little bit more committed. And I think that's what gets you when you get into coaching, like that's what drives you also. It's like, man, I'm not going to let somebody slip here. Yeah. Like, and those, like, as you know, like as a coach, like we don't like those hard conversations, but you got to have them. Like, I don't like that as a coach at all, but you got to have them. You got to have them and you got to help them. And I think that's, that's what kind of keeps you going, because when you have those hard conversations, they might not respect it, but they're definitely going to respect it in time. That they will really appreciate it when they get older.
Yes. You're a huge Cubs fan, also the Indy 500. You've been a part of that. How do you find time with your schedule as a coach? Because it never stops. Recruiting is constant. How do you find peace in all of this? How you enjoy that?
That's tough at times. I probably went to Wrigley Field 6 times this year. I had 20 games, so I took care of friends and just different people that help out our program and get them tickets. And so I'm a huge Cubs fan, but I don't do a whole lot else. I put a lot of time into the game. So I'm with USA Basketball. I'm on the NABC board, Men's Basketball Oversight Committee with you, different subcommittees. I go to clinics. Just try to keep learning, try to get better, try to help the game. And we're in a tough spot, right?
Yes.
And so just trying to be part of the solution more than anything. And but I've always tried to be professional and be diplomatic, even though I've had my moments like everybody else. But I don't know if this is the time for professionalism and being diplomatic.
Yeah.
Like some of the things that have happened, like I understand what we're getting towards, but like in the fashion and some of the things, I don't like kids going into the portal and then 3 months later they had a scholarship and now they don't have a scholarship.
It's tough.
Like, I want people to have successful stories, but we can't set rules and parameters, that put them in positions where they think, okay, I went to 3 high schools and I played on 6 AAU teams and I get to college and some guys trying to get me to play hard and some guys like really just trying to instill discipline in you. Nothing special is going to happen without discipline.
I agree.
And when people hear that word, it's like, man, that's a form of love.
Yes.
Like I don't yell at people I dislike. I ignore people I dislike. Like if some other coach is doing different things, like I ignore that person. Like it's like whatever, like, if I'm getting on somebody, it means you're like, you love them. You want them to do well. So you want to help them. It's, getting on them like, that don't help me. And so, but you've been down that path before and now here you are. But, so I've given a lot of time there and I have moments where like, you go on vacation or you do stuff, but it's hard. I'll be honest with you. Like, especially like when you go on a foreign trip, like you never feel like you catch up. Yes. Like that loss that we just had, like that, really multiple losses. Like it just stays on your brain, right? Even when you go other places, like you'd be reading a book, read 3 pages, and you'd be like, I don't know one word of those 3 pages I just read because I'm thinking about like what I ran or what I should have done or how I should have spoke at halftime or before the game or like it just stays with you. It's that burden, right? Well, you got to make that burden into a positive. And that's what I try to do, but it's difficult at times.
It really is, Coach. Now, Coach, you've done a lot of great things, but if there's one thing in this world, if you had a choice you can change, what would it be?
Man, probably everybody, they say all men are created equal, but not everybody is treated equal.
Yes.
To be able to structure our society so everybody is treated equally. From people of color to women that's what I would change. Because I think when you look at it, Like the only thing anybody ever wants is just the same opportunity. That's it. Like they don't want to be better, worse. They just want the same opportunity and everything. And that doesn't always happen. And so I think our society, racism has been the sin of our society. I think that's an easy statement. And so like, how can you change the minds? Because babies aren't born racist. It's not the way it works. They are taught that. And they're taught that in environments, and they're taught that by people. And so like, I think that, how can you get and grow and overturn, that history of people and how people think that way, when all we have to do is just treat people with respect, and then nobody gets judged. Everybody's on the same slate. But we all know that's not the way things have happened. So that's what I would, everybody having the same opportunities, everybody being able to be treated equally.
It all counts. Thank you for Matt Painter being here. Phenomenal coach, a tremendous leader, a man that breathes hope into his young men on and off the court. You want to see them successful in life and sport, have successful careers and families. He's a phenomenal person. I'm happy to have been a part of his life as a teammate, as an assistant coach. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to It All Counts, the podcast. Thank you.